Beloved one, the winds of heaven whisper your name tonight, for this moment has been chosen not by chance, but by divine command. The veil between what is seen and unseen trembles, and the light that has long been hidden now seeks your eyes. You were led here not by curiosity, not by coincidence, but by divine timing, for there are moments in eternity when heaven bends close to the heart of man, and this is one of them. You have felt it, haven't you? The subtle stirring in your soul, the unexplainable weight in your chest, the feeling that something has been concealed in the silence around you. It was not imagination, it was preparation. You were being ready to hear the truth that could not be spoken before now. For a time, heaven kept this secret from you, not to deceive, but to protect. Divine truth is not withheld out of cruelty. It is shielded until the heart is strong enough to carry its flame, and now that moment has come. The fire of revelation stands before you, and the voice you hear is not born of earth, but of light. You are being shown something that will shift your understanding of the people around you, the life you live, and the love you give. The one whom you trusted, the one whose words you held close as comfort, whose presence you believed was safety, has acted in shadows you could not see. The pain you felt without cause, the distance you sensed without explanation, the nights your spirit stirred and could not rest, these were not empty echoes. They were warnings wrapped in mercy. Beloved, heaven does not reveal betrayal to wound you, but to awaken you. The Creator's hand uncovers darkness only to cleanse it, and though this truth may sting, it will also set you free from the invisible chains that have bound you. You see, there are forces that disguise themselves as love, that speak kindly while weaving deception, that smile even as they steal your peace. You have been the target of such unseen workings, but the divine has intervened. What was plotted against you in silence will now echo in light. What was meant to break you will instead build you. The truth that once hid will now stand as your shield. You must not let fear take root in your spirit. Fear feeds the shadows. Stand firm, for the divine has placed around you legions of unseen guardians. You have not walked alone, not for a single heartbeat. Every tear you have shed was counted, every wound was seen, and every moment of doubt was recorded in the book of heaven. You were never abandoned, even when silence seemed endless. The pain you endured in confusion was not punishment, it was preparation. Heaven was shaping your faith, testing the strength of your compassion, and refining your discernment. You are about to see why the one you trusted most, whether a friend, a family member, or a lover, did something behind your back. Do not seek to uncover it with anger, for vengeance does not belong to man. Simply know that truth has already begun to unravel their falsehood. The divine eye has seen every act done in secret, and time will bring all things to light. The very hands that tried to harm your peace will tremble before the justice of the Almighty. You, however, are called not to hate but to release. Forgive, not to excuse, but to free yourself from the poison of bitterness. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is divine power. Beloved, when you opened your heart to trust, you did so because love lives within you. That love is your greatest strength, and the enemy of your soul has tried to twist it into your weakness, but no more. Heaven is restoring your inner sight. The scales are falling. You will begin to perceive truth beyond appearances. The words that once deceived you will sound hollow, and the smiles that once comforted you will reveal their cracks. Do not be afraid of this awakening. Truth does not destroy, it transforms. It purges falsehood so that the soul may breathe again. You are being led into a new season, one where light will no longer ask permission to shine. You will feel the protection of heaven in ways you have never known. Doors that once refused to open will unlock. Paths that were hidden will reveal themselves. The heaviness that clung to you will break away like smoke before a storm wind. You will understand why things had to fall apart before they could align. And though the revelation may pierce your heart, it is the pain that precedes healing. There is no need to fear what is to come, for divine order reigns even in the midst of chaos. The secret that has been kept was never meant to harm you. It was meant to prepare you for strength, clarity, and restoration. What has been done in the dark will not stand. The truth will burn through the veil, and when it does, your spirit will not cower, it will rise. Because what you carry within you is greater than what opposes you. You are light, born, chosen, and sealed in divine purpose. No betrayal can alter that. There are truths that heaven holds close, not because you are unworthy to hear them, but because your heart is still being prepared to receive them. Divine timing is a sacred law woven into the rhythm of every soul's journey. The light of revelation cannot be forced open before its appointed hour, for what is revealed too soon can shatter instead of strengthen. So heaven waits, patient and watchful, nurturing your growth in silence until the moment your spirit is ready to bear the full weight of understanding. This is why there are questions that have echoed unanswered in your heart, prayers that have lingered without reply, and mysteries that seem to mock your faith. It was never neglect, it was mercy in disguise. The divine knows that revelation, like the rising sun, must come gently, or its brilliance will blind rather than guide. There were moments when you demanded to know why, moments when confusion made you weep in solitude, wondering why heaven kept certain truths from you. But the unseen realm does not withhold truth out of cruelty. It shields you from the fire until you can walk through it without burning. Every delay has purpose. Every silence carries intention. The divine eye, seeing beyond your present pain, knows when knowledge will heal and when it will harm. To protect you, heaven cloaked certain realities in mystery, not to deceive, but to prepare the soil of your spirit for the seed of truth. Only a heart that has been tested can handle the weight of revelation without crumbling beneath it. Think of the child who reaches for the flame, not knowing its power. The parent draws the hand away, not out of meanness, but out of love. The child's time to understand fire will come, but not yet. So it is with you. The truths that heaven guards are not punishments. They are lessons waiting for maturity. You have walked through valleys and shadows that have taught you patience, resilience, and faith in what you cannot see. With every trial, your soul has grown stronger, your discernment sharper, and your spirit more attuned to divine frequencies. The readiness of your heart determines the revelation you can receive. Heaven will not give a sword to one who has not yet learned to hold it. The hiddenness of truth is a sacred form of protection. There are forces that would twist divine revelation into despair if it were given too soon. There are moments when seeing everything would crush your hope rather than strengthen it. This is why heaven conceals, because the right truth at the wrong time can destroy what it was meant to build. The divine, in its wisdom, reveals only what will bring growth, peace, and transformation. And when the moment arrives, when your heart has endured enough refining fire, when your faith no longer trembles at the unknown, the veil begins to lift. What once seemed incomprehensible begins to make sense. The scattered fragments of your journey start to align, and you understand that every unanswered question was part of your preparation. You see, readiness is not about knowledge, it is about capacity. A vessel too small cannot contain a flood of light. The Creator enlarges your spirit through trials, through heartbreaks, through the very moments you thought were failures. Each tear carved out space within you for greater wisdom. Each disappointment deepened your empathy, preparing you to carry revelation with grace instead of pride. Heaven does not waste your suffering. It refines you through it. What felt like abandonment was actually protection from truths that could have crushed your spirit before its roots grew deep enough to anchor in divine understanding. There is an order to revelation. The soul ascends through stages, first belief, then trust, then surrender, then illumination. You cannot skip any of these steps without losing balance. The divine watches your heart as it transforms through each one. When belief becomes steady, when trust replaces fear, when surrender silences complaint, then illumination begins to flow. It comes softly at first, like dawn filtering through mist, touching your understanding with gentle warmth. Suddenly, what was once hidden begins to gleam faintly on the horizon of your awareness. You realize that the waiting was not wasted time. It was sacred preparation. In the stillness where heaven hides its secrets, your heart learns the language of silence. It is there that divine truth begins to whisper. The soul that can rest without answers becomes the one most able to receive them. Heaven tests your patience not to torment you, but to teach you how to hear beyond the noise of fear. The divine voice is subtle, never shouted. It is only in still, steady hearts that it can be heard clearly. And so you were drawn into seasons of quiet, of wondering, of seeming distance, so that your inner ear could be tuned to heaven's frequency. Now that you have learned to listen, you are ready to hear. When revelation finally arrives, it comes not with thunder, but with clarity. The confusion that once clouded your path begins to dissolve. The pain that once felt senseless now becomes a teacher. You see that every unanswered prayer was a shield, every delay a hidden gift, every silence a message of love. The divine timing you once doubted reveals itself as perfect orchestration. The truth does not come to overwhelm you, it comes to complete you. Heaven's revelations are never late. They arrive precisely when the soul is mature enough to receive without breaking. Understand that revelation is not merely information, it is transformation. It changes the way you see, the way you love, the way you live. It realigns your inner world with divine truth. When heaven reveals what was hidden, it is not just to show you something new, but to make you someone new. You begin to perceive not only what happened, but why. You start to recognize patterns of divine mercy in the places you once saw only loss. You sense that heaven's delay was the very thing that preserved your destiny. You realize that the truth, had it been given too soon, would have broken the heart that now beats strong enough to hold it. Beloved soul, you were not forgotten, you were being readied. Heaven reveals truth only when the soul is strong enough to carry it. That moment has now come. The fire that once would have consumed you will now illuminate you. The secret that was once hidden will now unfold before your eyes, and the voice that calls you forward does so because it knows. You are ready. The pain you have carried through seasons of silence was never a punishment from heaven, though at times it felt like one. Every ache, every unanswered cry, every sleepless night when your spirit trembled under the weight of confusion was not meaningless suffering. It was the refining fire that prepared your soul for revelation. Pain, in the language of eternity, is not destruction. It is transformation. It strips away illusions, it humbles pride, it purifies the heart, and it awakens the soul to realities beyond the surface. When heaven allows pain, it is never without purpose. The divine never wastes tears. Each one becomes a drop of light in the river of your becoming. You may not have seen it then, but the pain that pressed against your spirit was the very instrument shaping you into someone who could carry the truth without collapsing beneath it. The divine crafts strength through struggle. There is no other way for the soul to be fortified. It is in the breaking that faith becomes unshakable. It is in the waiting that trust becomes unbreakable, and it is in the hurting that compassion takes root. The Creator does not build warriors in comfort, but in the furnace of affliction. You have been through seasons where you felt abandoned, where prayers seemed to fall into silence, and where answers never came. But what was actually happening was sacred preparation. Heaven was not punishing you. It was strengthening your spiritual muscles, deepening your roots, and stretching your capacity to hold greater light. When pain came, it was not to destroy you, but to teach you the depth of your own endurance. There are lessons that peace cannot teach. There are dimensions of faith that can only be revealed through the language of loss. In your pain you learned endurance. In your confusion you learned humility. In your sorrow you discovered the hidden presence of divine comfort. The pain you once cursed has secretly been your teacher, and its lessons have become the foundation of your strength. You learned how to walk when the path was dark, how to believe when nothing made sense, how to love even when your heart was bleeding. This is divine preparation. Heaven often allows the heart to be wounded so that it can learn to carry healing. When you felt forgotten, you were actually being refined. When you felt broken, you were being rebuilt. The divine surgeon cuts only to heal, and every incision upon your heart was precise and purposeful. Pain removes what does not belong to you, the illusions, the false securities, the dependencies that keep you tethered to what was never meant to stay. Every disappointment stripped something away, every betrayal revealed something hidden, every loss loosened the grip of what was temporary. You were not losing, you were being emptied to be filled with something far greater. The space created by pain is the space where divine wisdom begins to dwell. Heaven knew that if comfort surrounded you forever, you would never seek the higher purpose of your existence. Pain breaks complacency. It awakens a longing for truth that comfort cannot inspire. It makes the soul hungry for meaning beyond the visible, and in that hunger you begin to hear heaven's voice more clearly. When everything around you failed, you were forced to look upward. When the people you depended on turned away, you learned that divine presence was your only constant. Pain redirected your focus from what was fading to what is eternal. It stripped away distractions until only truth remained, and though it hurt, it was grace disguised as grief. Pain also reveals the strength you did not know you had. You survived nights you thought would end you. You carried burdens that seemed too heavy for your heart, and yet you are still standing. That resilience is not accidental. It is the result of divine training. Every trial was a rehearsal for revelation. Every moment of heartbreak prepared your heart to discern truth without fear. Heaven was not punishing you. It was preparing you to see beyond appearances. The tears you shed softened your heart so that when truth finally comes, it finds compassion instead of bitterness. Pain has trained you to understand the language of the broken, to feel deeply, to forgive, and to love even when you have every reason not to. That is how heaven forges the character of light. When pain visits, it brings a mirror. It shows you not only the world but yourself. It exposes your hidden wounds, your attachments, your need for control, your dependency on what cannot sustain you. It forces you to confront the parts of yourself you would rather avoid, and in doing so, it grants you the opportunity to be made whole. Healing does not begin when pain ends. It begins when you face it without fear. The divine allows pain so that you may awaken to who you truly are, a soul capable of light, love, and endurance beyond imagination. Pain refines perception, teaching you to see through deception, to recognize authenticity, and to discern divine will amidst confusion. You could not have gained this clarity through ease. It had to be birthed through struggle. There were times when you asked why heaven was silent while you suffered, but silence is not absence. In silence, heaven speaks in ways words cannot. While you wept, unseen hands were strengthening you. While you doubted, invisible wings were shielding you. You did not realize that in your deepest suffering, the divine was closest. The fire you thought would destroy you was actually the furnace that purified you. The pain that made you feel forgotten was the very signal that you were being chosen for something greater. Heaven does not refine what it does not intend to use. Every tear marked you as one who carries light. Pain becomes sacred when you understand its purpose. It teaches you empathy, humility, and dependence on divine strength rather than your own. It prepares you to handle revelation with gentleness instead of arrogance. It opens your heart to see beyond right and wrong, beyond who hurt you and why, into the greater truth that everything, yes, even your suffering, was allowed for a reason. Through pain, your spirit becomes teachable. The walls of pride and illusion crumble, and the soul becomes an open vessel, ready to receive light. The greatest truths are often born in the darkest nights, because only then can light be truly seen. So when pain came, it was not sent to destroy you but to awaken you. It was the divine's way of stretching your soul to a greater capacity. It was the classroom of heaven where your spirit learned endurance, wisdom, and strength. Pain was never punishment. It was preparation for revelation. It was heaven's way of saying, you are being made ready, and though you may have walked through fire, you did not burn, you were refined. You are now stronger, wiser, and more radiant than before, because the pain that once broke you has become the power that will now sustain you. There are truths that pierce the heart more deeply than any wound, and among them is the realization that the one you trusted most has acted in secrecy against you. Trust is sacred. It is the soul's offering, the bridge built between hearts, the invisible bond that allows love, friendship, and faith to exist. When that bond is broken, something inside you fractures. The shock of betrayal is not only emotional, it is spiritual. It shakes the foundations of what you believe to be pure, it disturbs the calm of your inner world, and it causes the soul to question its own discernment. Yet even this, as painful as it feels, is not without divine purpose. Heaven allows such revelations not to shatter you, but to strip away illusions that would have kept you blind. The divine light exposes what has been hidden, not to destroy your peace, but to cleanse the path you walk. The one you trusted may have spoken kindly, smiled sincerely, and appeared as though they stood by you. Their gestures, words, and actions may have seemed aligned with love, yet somewhere behind that mask was a shadow unseen. There were moments when your intuition whispered, when a subtle unease stirred within you, but you silenced it because love believes the best. You wanted to see goodness, so you dismissed the flickers of doubt. That is the purity of your heart. You trusted because your own spirit is sincere. You assumed honesty because you yourself are honest. But in the unseen realm, not every heart moves in light. Some are influenced by jealousy, fear, or wounded pride, and they act in secrecy even toward those who wish them only well. The divine saw what you could not, and though heaven waited to reveal it, the truth has now reached you. The realization that someone acted against you behind your back can feel like a storm tearing through your soul. It confuses your mind, breaks your sense of safety, and makes you wonder how long deceit had been present. You replay moments, words, and memories, searching for signs you missed. But this searching is not to torment you. It is part of the awakening. The divine is showing you that not every smile is rooted in sincerity, not every companion walks in truth, and not every promise is sealed with loyalty. This revelation, though it feels cruel, is the beginning of freedom. To see clearly is to no longer live bound by illusion. You may wonder why heaven allowed the betrayal, why divine protection did not shield you from it earlier. But sometimes the exposure of deceit must happen through experience. You had to see the difference between true and false love, between loyalty that endures and loyalty that pretends. Heaven knew that only through the pain of discovery could your discernment be sharpened. The divine allows deception to touch your life only long enough to teach you wisdom. You are not being punished. You are being enlightened. What was done behind your back was seen by heaven long before you became aware, and now that the appointed time has come, the truth has risen from the shadows into the light. You must not allow bitterness to take root, for bitterness is the weapon of darkness. The one who betrayed you acted from weakness, not strength. Their deceit was born from fear, envy, or confusion, and though it wounded you, it cannot destroy you. Your integrity remains untouched. The light within you cannot be dimmed by their shadows. Heaven does not reveal betrayal so that you may seek revenge, but so that you may walk in truth. This revelation is not an invitation to hate, but a call to rise. You are being shown that not all who walk beside you are meant to continue the journey. Some were placed in your path to teach discernment, to expose hidden motives, to refine your spirit's vision. There is mercy even in betrayal. The divine allows the false to fall away before it can corrupt the pure. The exposure of deception is an act of protection. You may feel pain now, but in time you will see that this truth saved you from far greater harm. What was whispered in darkness against you will never stand before the light of truth. The divine has seen every hidden act, every false word, every plan laid in secret. The justice of heaven does not sleep. It works quietly, steadily, until all things are revealed in their true form. You do not need to expose anyone. The light will do that for you. What you need to do is remain steadfast, untainted by anger, and trusting that truth is your shield. When betrayal enters your life, it tests your heart. It tempts you to close yourself off, to harden, to stop believing in goodness. But heaven calls you to do the opposite. You are not to let one act of deceit define how you see love. The divine wants you to continue walking in light, to continue believing in truth, and to continue loving even when others have not. Your compassion must remain intact, for that is what keeps you aligned with heaven's nature. The betrayal was a wound, yes, but it was also a doorway to deeper wisdom. Now you see with new eyes. You can sense when something feels off, you can perceive beyond words, and you can feel the vibration of sincerity or deceit in the hearts around you. That is divine discernment awakening within you. Do not let this revelation turn you inward in despair. Instead, let it turn you upward in trust. The one who betrayed you may have thought their actions were hidden, but nothing escapes divine sight. What was done in secrecy has already been brought into the open in the spiritual realm, and that exposure marks the beginning of restoration for you. The very act meant to harm you has now become the seed of your elevation. The divine turns every wound into wisdom, every betrayal into blessing, every deception into discernment. You will not remain broken, for heaven rebuilds stronger what the world has tried to destroy. The one who acted behind your back has already begun to face the spiritual consequence of their choices. Heaven's justice is not always swift, but it is always certain. It comes not with vengeance, but with correction. The divine seeks not to destroy the betrayer, but to awaken them to truth, just as you are being awakened now. You must leave their judgment to the higher hand, and focus instead on your own healing. Your task is to reclaim your peace, your joy, and your trust, not necessarily in them, but in divine wisdom guiding your path forward. You have been chosen to see beyond illusion. This revelation was not to punish you, but to free you. You were being watched over even as the betrayal took place. The divine allowed you to experience it, so that you could learn to depend not on appearances, but on discernment. The person you trusted most may have broken that trust, but they have not broken you. The light within you is too strong to be extinguished by deception. Now that the truth has surfaced, you will walk with greater clarity, stronger faith, and a deeper understanding of who truly walks beside you in light and who does not. Heaven's hand has uncovered what was hidden, and though it hurts to know, this truth is the very thing that will guard your future steps. There are no secrets that escape divine sight. Every thought, every action, every whisper carried in the dark is known to heaven. What is hidden from human eyes is never hidden from the gaze that pierces through all deception. When truth is concealed for a season, it is not forgotten. It is only waiting for the appointed moment to be revealed. Divine justice operates with patience, not haste. It moves in silence, observing, recording, and preparing the right time to bring all things into the light. The hands that move against truth may think they act unseen, but the eyes of heaven are always watching. Every deceitful word, every hidden motive, every act done behind another's back is known. The divine may allow darkness to move for a while, but when the hour of revelation arrives, no shadow can stand before the light. You have wondered why wrongdoers seem to prosper, why those who act in falsehood appear untouched, why heaven does not strike swiftly when injustice rises. But divine justice is not human justice. It does not react, it restores. It allows time to unfold so that every choice reveals its own consequence. The divine does not punish blindly. It lets each heart write its own record. In this sacred design, patience is not weakness. It is perfection. While you wept in confusion, wondering why truth remained hidden, heaven was already working. It was aligning circumstances, preparing moments, softening hearts, and ensuring that when the truth emerged, it could no longer be denied. The exposure of deceit must come at the right time, for premature revelation can lead to misunderstanding or chaos. So heaven waits, allowing the unseen to ripen until the moment when light will pierce through and expose everything as it truly is. The justice of heaven is woven with mercy. Even those who act in secrecy are given space to repent, to awaken, to return to truth before judgment falls. This is why some betrayals remain hidden for a time, not to protect the guilty, but to give them the chance to turn away from their own darkness. Divine love always gives one final opportunity for redemption. But when hearts remain hardened, when deceit continues and repentance does not come, the hand of heaven moves. What was whispered in shadows is suddenly spoken aloud. What was plotted in silence is revealed before witnesses, and what was meant to remain secret is displayed openly for all to see. This is divine justice, calm but unstoppable. No lie endures forever before the throne of truth. The person who has wronged you may think they have escaped, but there is no escape from the divine law of return. Every action sows a seed, and every seed brings forth fruit in its time. Those who sow deceit reap exposure. Those who harm in secret face the mirror of consequence. Heaven does not forget, but it also does not rush. It lets truth mature until the revelation itself becomes the teacher. When divine justice arrives, it does not need to announce itself. It appears naturally, unfolding through events that no one can deny. Words begin to contradict themselves, lies unravel, relationships reveal their hidden cracks, and the very weight of falsehood collapses under its own design. This is not revenge. It is divine order restoring balance. You must trust this process. Do not try to force truth into the open before its time. The divine has already marked the moment when all things will be seen. Your task is to remain in peace, knowing that justice is not delayed, only perfected. The one who wronged you carries their own burden, even if they smile. The weight of deceit grows heavier each day until it breaks beneath the pressure of its own creation. Truth does not need defenders, it defends itself. Your role is not to expose, but to stay aligned with integrity, to let heaven handle what you cannot control. When divine justice unfolds, it will do so with such precision that no explanation will be needed. Every lie will collapse in the presence of truth's light. Divine justice also acts as revelation within you. It opens your spiritual eyes to see how deeply heaven governs every event. You begin to understand that nothing escapes divine order. Even when life appears chaotic, it is secretly under perfect control. Every betrayal, every hidden act, every injustice becomes part of a larger orchestration meant to strengthen your discernment. Heaven uses even the wrongdoing of others to purify your vision, to teach you to depend not on appearances but on spiritual truth. The moment you surrender the need for revenge, you become free, and in that freedom, divine justice moves more swiftly. Heaven acts on behalf of the heart that does not seek to avenge itself. The still soul becomes a vessel through which divine power flows unopposed. When truth comes, it comes suddenly. It enters like lightning, cutting through layers of illusion, revealing what has been concealed. Those who once appeared righteous are unmasked, and those who were misunderstood are vindicated. Heaven has no need for earthly courts when divine truth speaks. Its evidence is undeniable, its timing flawless, its outcome absolute. The one who has been falsely accused is lifted up, and the one who is deceived is brought low, not by human hands but by divine decree. The exposure itself becomes the correction. Those who acted against you will face what they created, not as punishment, but as reflection. Divine justice gives each soul a mirror, and that mirror never lies the knowledge that heaven sees all should bring peace to your heart. You no longer need to chase explanations or prove your innocence. You are seen fully, deeply, truthfully. The divine has recorded every injustice and will redeem every wound in its time. Your pain has already been counted, and your endurance has already been honored. The unveiling of truth will come not through anger, but through divine orchestration so clear that even your enemies will know it was heaven's doing. What you thought was delayed justice was actually precise timing. Heaven never misses its moment. There will come a day when you look back and understand why it had to unfold this way. If truth had come too early, you might have fought the wrong battle. If it had come too late, your heart might have hardened. But it came exactly when your spirit was strong enough to receive it without losing peace. That is how divine justice works. It waits for both truth and heart to be ready, and when it reveals what was hidden, it not only uncovers deceit, but also restores order. The divine balances scales that human hands cannot. It clears your name without your defense, exposes falsehood without your effort, and vindicates you without your striving. You need only stand still and trust the process. Heaven's justice is slow only to human eyes. In eternity's rhythm, it is always on time. What is hidden now is not hidden forever. Every falsehood carries the seed of its own exposure. Every betrayal carries within it the moment of its unveiling. The divine does not need to announce when it will act. It simply acts when the appointed hour arrives. And when that hour comes, the truth will emerge so clearly, so completely, that no lie will survive in its light. Forgiveness is not a weakness of the soul. It is the highest form of divine strength. To forgive when wounded, to release when betrayed, to bless when cursed. These are not acts of surrender, but acts of spiritual power. When the heart forgives, it aligns itself with the very nature of heaven. The divine does not harbor resentment, for resentment binds the spirit to the same darkness that caused the pain. Forgiveness is not denial, it is liberation. It is the act of taking your power back from the wound that tried to define you. When you forgive, you declare that the one who hurt you no longer controls your peace. You rise above the act and reclaim your light. Heaven calls every soul that suffers betrayal to this sacred act, not for the sake of the betrayer, but for the healing of the betrayed. There is a great misunderstanding about forgiveness. Many think it means forgetting, excusing, or pretending the pain never happened. But forgiveness does not erase memory, it transforms it. It allows you to look at the same wound and no longer feel the poison within it. It changes the energy around what was done so that it no longer consumes your thoughts or commands your emotions. Forgiveness is a form of spiritual cleansing, washing away the bitterness that would otherwise take root in your heart. It does not require reconciliation, nor does it mean trusting the untrustworthy. It simply means that you refuse to let hatred dwell within the temple of your soul. The divine cannot dwell where bitterness reigns, for bitterness is a barrier to peace. When you forgive, you make space for light to return. Forgiveness disarms the darkness that once held you captive. Every act of betrayal carries a spiritual thread meant to keep you entangled in pain. The enemy of your soul desires you to dwell in resentment because resentment keeps the wound open, but when you forgive, that thread is severed. You disconnect from the energy of those who harmed you. You stop feeding their influence with your thoughts. The more you release, the freer you become. The one who hurt you loses their hold, and the pain that once echoed in your heart begins to fade. This is why forgiveness is such a divine weapon. It turns pain into peace, weakness into wisdom, and wounds into wings. It allows you to rise without carrying the weight of the past. Forgiveness also restores your connection to divine flow. When your heart is burdened with anger or vengeance, spiritual energy cannot move freely through you. The higher realms speak in frequencies of love, mercy, and compassion. When you choose forgiveness, you attune yourself once again to that divine vibration. You begin to feel peace where turmoil once lived. You hear guidance more clearly. Your prayers move unhindered because your heart is open. Heaven does not ask you to condone injustice, only to rise above it. To forgive is to say, I will not let darkness define how I love. It is a declaration that your spirit belongs to the light, not to the pain others caused. Forgiveness does not happen all at once. It unfolds in layers, sometimes slowly, sometimes painfully. The heart must first grieve, then understand, then release. There are moments when you will think you have forgiven, only for the old ache to return. That is not failure. It is the heart healing in deeper stages. Each time you choose release over resentment, the wound loses its power. The process itself is a sacred journey. Even the struggle to forgive is seen and honored by heaven. Divine grace does not demand perfection. It celebrates willingness. The act of saying, I want to forgive, even when you cannot yet feel it, opens a door for heaven to help you do what you cannot do alone. To forgive does not mean to allow repeated harm. Boundaries are holy. You can forgive and still walk away. You can release anger while refusing to return to what broke you. Forgiveness is not submission, it is sovereignty. It is choosing peace over revenge, clarity over chaos, freedom over bondage. When you forgive, you are not saying that the one who hurt you was right. You are saying that you will no longer drink the poison of bitterness, hoping it will harm them. You are reclaiming your mind, your emotions, and your spirit from the hold of the past. The divine does not measure forgiveness by emotion but by choice. Each time you choose not to retaliate, not to curse, not to wish harm, you are walking in divine power. The one who wronged you may never apologize. They may never see the depth of the pain they caused, but forgiveness does not depend on their repentance. It depends on your freedom. The heart that waits for an apology remains chained to expectation. The heart that forgives without it walks into liberty. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because your peace deserves it. The divine teaches that love is the only energy strong enough to break cycles of pain. When you forgive, you stop the cycle from continuing through you. You refuse to pass on the energy of hate to others. You become a vessel of healing instead of hurt. That is how divine light spreads in a world full of shadows. Forgiveness also reveals your true strength. Anyone can hold a grudge, but it takes divine courage to let go. It is easy to curse those who curse you. It is holy to bless them and walk away. Every act of forgiveness is a victory for light over darkness. It proves that no matter what was done to you, your heart remains guided by heaven, not by pain. Each time you forgive, you rise higher, closer to the frequency of divine love. You become untouchable by the energies that once tried to drag you down. The wound that was meant to weaken you becomes the evidence of your strength. The pain that once silenced your prayers becomes the very reason your faith deepens. This is the mystery of forgiveness. It transforms suffering into sacred strength. Forgiveness also brings healing to generations. When you forgive, you break patterns that have passed through families and souls for ages. The grudges, the hatred, the repeating cycles of revenge, they end with you. You become the point where the line of darkness is interrupted. The energy you release does not vanish. It transforms into light that touches everything connected to you. Heaven rejoices over the soul that forgives, for that act heals not just the individual, but the spiritual lineage. You become a vessel through which divine mercy flows into the world. The peace you create within becomes peace that radiates outward, changing the atmosphere around you. There will be moments when you still feel the sting of memory, but even then, forgiveness remains your shield. Each time pain rises, speak light instead of anger. Choose compassion over complaint. Ask the divine to continue the work of cleansing within you. Slowly, the burden lifts, and what remains is wisdom. The lesson you learned through betrayal becomes the guidance you offer to others. You begin to see that forgiveness was never about the one who wronged you. It was about your transformation. It was about becoming who heaven intended you to be, a soul so filled with love that no act of darkness can imprison it. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is the echo of heaven within your heart. Truth in its divine essence is never meant to destroy, but to awaken and transform the soul into something greater than it was before. When truth comes, it often comes wrapped in pain, confusion, or disbelief, because it pierces through illusions we've built to keep ourselves safe. Yet what feels like breaking is actually birthing. The divine never reveals truth to harm, but to heal. It opens the eyes of the spirit, exposing what must be seen, so that light may enter the hidden places of the heart. Sometimes the truth arrives like a storm, tearing down walls that were never meant to stand. It may shatter comfort, but it clears the ground for new life to grow. Heaven allows revelation not to condemn, but to cleanse, to lift the soul out of deception, and return it to alignment with divine reality. The truth has a way of finding its moment, for divine timing governs revelation. There are truths you are not ready to face before, truths that would have crushed you if you had seen them too soon. Heaven waits for the exact moment your heart can bear the weight of what must be known. When that moment arrives, truth comes not as punishment but as permission for you to step into wisdom, to move from blindness into vision. Truth comes when it can transform, not when it will destroy. The pain it brings is temporary, the freedom it gives is eternal. Every truth that surfaces carries within it a spark of divine love, because heaven desires not your suffering but your awakening. The light does not expose to shame, it exposes to heal. When the truth finally unfolds, the first reaction of the human heart is often disbelief. It resists, it questions, it grieves. The mind tries to deny it, to return to the comfort of illusion. Yet deep within, the spirit recognizes the echo of the divine. You may feel anger at those who hid it, betrayal from those who deceived, confusion at why heaven allowed it, but the truth is never revealed in cruelty. It is revealed in mercy. The divine knows that you cannot live forever in the shadow of falsehood, because to do so is to remain bound. Lies act as chains that keep your soul from expanding. When the truth breaks those chains, there is pain, yes, but it is the pain of freedom, not captivity. The divine allows truth to rise only when it can serve your ascension. Truth has a purifying power that nothing else can match. It strips away pretense, ego, and illusion, leaving the soul exposed before heaven's light. This exposure is not meant to humiliate, but to illuminate. When you see things as they truly are, you gain the power to choose differently, to rise above what once limited you. Truth is the divine mirror, showing both your wounds and your worth. It reveals not only what others have done, but who you are becoming through it. It does not simply point to betrayal or deception, it points to your potential to transcend them. Each revealed truth carries within it a divine invitation to grow, to forgive, to reclaim your authority as a being of light. The human heart often associates truth with pain because it disrupts comfort, but pain itself is not the enemy. Pain is the signal that awakening is happening. The divine allows pain not to harm, but to awaken sensitivity to what has long been ignored. Just as the body aches to draw attention to what needs healing, so too does the soul ache when truth comes. The sting of revelation is the beginning of restoration. The tears that follow truth are not signs of weakness. They are sacred waters that cleanse the spirit of falsehood. Every drop of sorrow holds within it the seed of rebirth. The divine whispers through every truth revealed, "You are not being punished, you are being purified." The more you allow that truth to settle within, the more you understand that revelation is not destruction, but redemption in disguised truth is the language of heaven, but deception is the language of fear. When you live in truth, your soul vibrates in harmony with divine order. When you live in illusion, your energy becomes fragmented, restless, and heavy. This is why heaven sends truth like a key to unlock what has been trapped in shadow. The truth sets you free, not just from others, but from yourself, from your own denial, your fears, your attachments. It realigns your heart with what is eternal. In truth, there is always love, even when it arrives cloaked in loss. The divine cannot lie, for lies distort creation. When truth comes, it restores creation within you. It brings back the balance between who you are and who you were always meant to be. The revelation of truth also tests the heart. What you do with truth determines how it transforms you. Some resist and grow bitter, clinging to pain. Others surrender and grow brighter, allowing the revelation to refine them. The divine never forces transformation, it invites it. When you embrace truth, even when it hurts, you choose the path of light. You begin to see the hidden purpose behind every revelation. What was done behind your back, what was hidden in darkness, all of it becomes material for your growth. Heaven wastes nothing. Every deception revealed becomes the soil where wisdom blooms. Every hidden act exposed becomes the lesson that elevates you beyond what once bound you. When you see truth as an ally rather than an enemy, you rise into the clarity of divine sight. There is also mercy in the timing of truth. Sometimes the divine withholds revelation because your heart is still too tender, your faith too fragile. The silence is not neglect, it is protection. When truth is finally unveiled, it is because heaven knows you have gained the strength to see and not shatter, and even then, divine compassion surrounds the moment of revelation. You are not left alone to face the truth. You are guided, shielded, upheld. The pain of knowing is softened by the presence of unseen comforters. The same divine love that reveals is the love that heals. The truth that feels unbearable today will one day become the testimony of your strength, the mark of your awakening. The reason your light shines brighter. Truth is a refining fire. It burns away falsehood, not to leave you empty, but to make space for divine wisdom to dwell. In its light, illusions dissolve and masks fall away. You begin to see the intentions behind actions, the motives behind words, the lessons behind pain. This clarity is not cold, it is compassionate. It teaches you to discern without condemning, to see without judging, to understand without absorbing darkness. The more truth you accept, the purer your vision becomes. You start recognizing that even those who betrayed you were instruments in your awakening, though their choices were their own. The divine turns even deception into revelation, for nothing can oppose the purpose of heaven. The truth is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your transformation. Every truth that comes into your life comes to set you free. It comes to lift you higher, to remind you of your strength, to draw you closer to the divine source that has never stopped loving you. Though the moment of revelation may feel like loss, what follows is always liberation. You may lose illusions, but you gain sight. You may lose comfort, but you gain clarity. You may lose people, but you gain peace. The divine's intention has never been to destroy, only to awaken, to shape your spirit through the light of truth until you remember who you truly are and rise into the fullness of that eternal light even in silence. Heaven's protection has always surrounded you. There were moments you thought you were abandoned, moments when the darkness pressed in so closely that you could not feel the warmth of divine presence, but even then you were being shielded by unseen hands. The absence you felt was never abandonment. It was the quiet strength of divine guardianship working behind the veil. There are battles fought in realms you cannot see, wars of spirit and shadow waged over your peace, your faith, your destiny. You have been preserved not because you were never touched by harm, but because heaven stood between you and the destruction meant to end you. Every night you survived without knowing why, every danger you escaped without explanation, every heartbreak that didn't shatter you beyond repair. These were signs of that invisible protection that has never ceased to watch over you. There are moments in your life that made no sense at all, detours. Losses, delays, closed doors, unanswered prayers. You thought they were punishments, but in truth they were shields. You were being redirected away from paths that would have broken your spirit or stolen your light. The divine does not always protect by removal. Sometimes it protects by redirection. You were kept from things that glittered but were never gold. You were guarded from people whose smiles concealed harm. You were delayed not because you were unworthy, but because the timing was being purified. Protection often feels like disappointment when viewed through human eyes. Yet when time passes, you begin to see the pattern, the divine pattern that kept you from what was never meant to hold you. The protection of heaven is not loud. It is subtle, gentle, and constant, weaving through your days in ways you cannot comprehend until later. There were times when you cried out for answers, and the sky seemed silent. But the silence of heaven is not neglect. It is strategy. When heaven is quiet, it is often working in depths you cannot reach. It is orchestrating protection not only for your body, but for your destiny. The unseen realm moves with precision, knowing that one wrong step could change the course of your purpose. You are not just protected from physical harm. You are guarded from spiritual corruption, from energies that would distort your soul's calling. Sometimes that means isolation. Sometimes that means loss. Sometimes it means being hidden from those who would misunderstand your light. The isolation you resented was, in truth, the cocoon of divine safety. The waiting was your preparation. The loneliness was your refinement. You were never left alone. You were being held where no darkness could reach you. The protection of heaven is not always gentle. Sometimes it comes through disruption. Sometimes it tears away what you tried to cling to. Sometimes it exposes what you refuse to see. It may feel harsh, but it is holy. When you begged to keep what was never meant for you, heaven intervened. The divine knows what you cannot know, the outcome of paths unseen, the intentions hidden beneath words, the dangers masked in beauty. You were protected from what you wanted because heaven saw what it would cost you. You thought it was rejection, but it was redemption. Every door that closed was a gatekeeping act of love. Every betrayal was a revelation that freed you. Every heartbreak was heaven removing what could not stand beside your destiny. Protection is not always comfort. It is truth delivered through divine wisdom, and that wisdom never fails. There were days when you felt small and unseen, when the weight of your battles made you question your strength. But even then, divine forces surrounded you, interceding on your behalf. Every tear you shed was recorded, every sigh was heard, every whisper of despair was answered by light gathering around you. You did not walk alone, even when your footsteps echoed through emptiness. There were angels encamped around you, standing guard while you slept, guiding your thoughts toward hope when fear tried to consume you. You thought the strength was your own, but the truth is you were being upheld. Every time you rose after falling, every time you found peace after chaos, every time your heart softened instead of turning bitter, it was heaven's touch sustaining you. The divine presence does not always reveal itself in flashes of glory. Sometimes it reveals itself in your ability to endure what should have broken you. Protection is not merely defense, it is alignment. Heaven's shield is not just about keeping danger away. It is about keeping your soul in harmony with its divine path. The universe moves in sacred balance, and your spirit is a thread within that design. When you wander too far, protection gently redirects you back toward purpose. It may remove distractions, silence voices, or slow your steps, all so you do not drift from the frequency of divine intention. You have been guided through storms not because you deserved suffering, but because the storm shaped your discernment. You have walked through confusion not to be lost, but to learn the sound of divine direction amid noise. Every trial was not just endured, it was allowed for your awakening. The shield that covered you was not only to defend, but to discipline your spirit into strength and wisdom. Even the betrayals that wounded you were part of your protection. The revelation of hidden motives, the crumbling of false connections, the exposure of deceit, all of these were acts of mercy. Heaven allowed truth to surface not to punish you, but to preserve you. Had you continued trusting the unworthy, your light would have been drained, your purpose dimmed. Pain became the barrier that kept you from further harm. Sometimes the divine allows heartbreak, because only pain can reveal what peace had blinded you to. You were protected through the pain that hurt and healed you at once. It may have felt like you were being broken, but in truth you were being set free. Heaven's protection is not always the absence of struggle. It is the assurance that every struggle will serve your transformation. The divine has placed a covering over you that darkness cannot penetrate. Though you may walk through shadows, light is woven into your path. Even when storms rage, you are encased in a grace that will not let you fall beyond recovery. Every danger that came against you met resistance it could not see. Every curse spoken over you dissolved in the presence of divine intention. Every plot formed against your peace was dismantled before it reached its mark. You have survived things you never understood because the hand of heaven never released you. The divine covering is not something you earn. It is something you are given, out of love that transcends your comprehension. You are protected not because you are perfect, but because you are purposed, and so, when you look back on your journey, you begin to see the invisible pattern, the divine orchestration that has carried you from darkness into light, from fear into faith. You begin to realize that every silence had a reason, every delay had a lesson, every loss had protection hidden within it. Heaven's guardianship has never failed, even when your faith faltered. You are surrounded by light that never sleeps, guided by a love that never leaves, covered by mercy that never ends. The protection you could not see was always there, guarding your destiny, holding your heart, ensuring that you would reach the place you were created to be. Every unseen shield, every invisible hand, every quiet rescue has led you to this moment where you can finally see what heaven always saw, that you are never alone, and that your life has always been under divine. Watch, this revelation marks the beginning of your divine awakening, a moment when the veil that once covered your understanding begins to lift, and the eyes of your spirit open to truths that were hidden in mystery. Awakening does not come gently. It arrives like dawn after a long night, light breaking through the heavy fog of illusion. It does not merely inform you, it transforms you. It shifts your awareness from seeing life through the narrow lens of pain and confusion to seeing it through the vastness of divine perspective. The things that once controlled your emotions begin to lose their power, because awakening brings recognition of who you truly are, recognition of who has walked with you all along, recognition of the divine fingerprints woven into every chapter of your story. The moment you awaken is the moment you remember that you were never forsaken. Only being prepared awakening begins in the heart long before the mind understands it. It stirs quietly within you, a subtle longing for something more, a whisper that the world you see is not all there is. The soul starts to feel restless, dissatisfied with shallow things, hungry for depth, for truth, for the voice of the divine that calls you home. You begin to sense that every event, every loss, every betrayal, every unanswered question was part of something greater. This is how the divine awakens the soul, not by comfort, but by calling it out of slumber through the friction of experience. The pain you once cursed becomes the very light that guides you. The questions that once tormented you become the doors to revelation. Awakening is not an escape from the world. It is a deeper seeing of it, an understanding that everything has meaning, that even the shadows serve the light. As awakening deepens, you begin to feel a shift within yourself. The noise of the world grows quieter, and the inner voice grows stronger. You start to recognize truth by vibration rather than words, love by presence rather than promise, peace by knowing rather than circumstance. You become aware of a guiding force that has always been near, orchestrating your path, using even the mistakes of others to shape your destiny. What once appeared as chaos now reveals itself as divine choreography. Every encounter, every delay, every moment of confusion begins to make sense in the light of awakening. You start to see that your life has never been random. There is purpose woven into the smallest details, and every experience was crafted to bring you here, to this moment of understanding, to this moment where your spirit remembers its origin. Awakening does not mean you will never feel pain again. In fact, sometimes the light makes the wounds more visible. But now, instead of resenting them, you begin to see them as sacred. You realize that what hurt you also shaped you, that the scars on your soul are proof of battles won, not evidence of defeat. You no longer see your past as a series of misfortunes, but as a divine education. Every tear was a teacher, every loss a lesson, every silence a message. Awakening teaches you to stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What did this awaken within me?" The divine does not waste pain. It recycles it into wisdom. The moment you see this truth is the moment your spirit steps into freedom, for you can no longer be imprisoned by what you understand. The awakening also transforms how you see others. Where once you saw enemies, you now see teachers. Where once you saw betrayal, you now see revelation. You begin to understand that every person who crossed your path, whether they brought joy or sorrow, played a role in your evolution. Some came to love you, some came to test you, some came to awaken you. You realize that even those who acted in darkness were instruments in the hands of light, unknowingly shaping the person you were meant to become. This recognition doesn't justify their actions, but it frees you from resentment. You start to see that divine justice is not always immediate, but it is perfect. Awakening brings peace not because life becomes easy, but because you finally see beyond appearances to the truth that lies beneath all things, that everything is guided, everything is purposeful, everything is sacred. In awakening, your relationship with the divine changes. What you once sought outside of yourself, you begin to feel within. The distance between heaven and your heart dissolves. You no longer chase signs, you become one. You no longer plead for guidance, you live in it. The divine presence that once felt far away begins to move through your thoughts, your words, your breath. You begin to understand that the divine was never something you needed to find. It was the essence of your being all along. Awakening is not about becoming something new. It is about remembering what you have always been. It is the lifting of the veil that kept you from seeing your own light. You start to walk differently, speak differently, see differently, because now you live with awareness that you are not separate from the divine flow, but part of it. As your awakening unfolds, You begin to sense the shift in energy around you. People who cannot align with your light may drift away, and though it may feel like loss, it is actually clearing. Old patterns, habits, and attachments begin to fall away because they no longer resonate with your higher frequency. You find yourself craving silence more than noise, truth more than comfort, authenticity more than approval. You are no longer interested in appearances. You seek essence. This is the purification process of awakening, where all that is false dissolves. The divine refines you through this process, stripping away everything that does not reflect truth. It is not punishment. It is preparation for your expansion. You are being molded into the vessel of light you were always meant to be. There comes a moment in awakening when you begin to see that your life has purpose far beyond personal desire. You realize you are part of something vast, a divine network of souls awakening across the world, each carrying light into places where darkness has long ruled. Your pain was not in vain. It made you compassionate. Your silence was not wasted. It made you listen deeply. Your survival was not accidental. It was ordained. You have been refined to carry wisdom, to speak truth, to hold light for those still wandering through their night. Awakening makes you an instrument of the divine, a living message of hope. You no longer live only for yourself. You live as a channel through which heaven's love and truth can reach others, and as this awakening deepens, peace begins to replace fear. You stop searching for meaning in chaos because you now see that meaning has always been present. You stop doubting your path because you know it has always been guided. You stop fearing endings because you understand they are beginnings disguised. You no longer need constant reassurance from signs and miracles, for you have become a sign and a miracle yourself. The divine moves through you as naturally as breath. Your words carry light. Your silence carries presence. Your being carries peace. You realize that the awakening is not a destination, but a continuous unfolding, an eternal rising into higher truth. What begins as revelation becomes transformation, and what began as pain becomes purpose. This is the moment heaven has prepared you for, the moment when you finally see with the eyes of spirit and know beyond doubt that your life, your journey, and your awakening have always been guided by divine love.